Occasionally, a moral panic arises that is so divorced from reality it needs to be addressed before it does real harm. One of those is the idea that social media is 100% bad for our kids. Today, we're going to be talking about the benefits of social media for kids and teens and looking at real numbers and peer-reviewed studies to help you understand how to navigate the froth and churn about this that permeates the news. This will help you make good decisions about screen time and social media use with your own kids. No fear-mongering, no political agenda, just facts, research, and practical insights you can use. Welcome back to Cyberspace. I'm your host, Leslie Poston. While concerns about screen time and online interactions are valid and important to discuss, there's another side to this story that deserves our attention. Recent research has shown that social media platforms, when used mindfully, can offer unique benefits that help young people thrive in our increasingly connected world. Before we dive into our segments today, I want to acknowledge something important. The landscape of youth spaces has changed dramatically over the past few decades. Traditionally, society had what sociologists call third spaces, places outside of home and school where young people could gather, socialize, and just be themselves. Think of the malls, the parks, and community centers of decades past. But these physical third spaces have been disappearing. Urban development, budget cuts, safety concerns, and changing parenting patterns have all contributed to a staggering 40% decline in youth-accessible public spaces in urban areas over the past 2 decades. Social media didn't cause these problems or the decline of third places. But when it arrived on the scene after the decline started, it certainly filled a necessary gap with digital third spaces. Platforms like Discord, Instagram, and TikTok have become the modern equivalent of those mall food courts and park benches. Places where young people can gather, share their experiences, and build community on their terms. Let's explore how these digital spaces are reshaping youth development, connection, and growth in sometimes surprising ways. And this makes sense when you consider that 95% of teens now have access to a smartphone, and close to 90% use at least one major social media platform. While this high usage often raises concerns, research has revealed numerous potential benefits when these platforms are used thoughtfully. When we talk about connection through social media, we're not just talking about casual interactions. Recent longitudinal research found that social media platforms play a vital role in maintaining meaningful relationships, especially during major life transitions like changing schools, losing loved ones, getting a difficult medical diagnosis, or moving to a new neighborhood. The study revealed something particularly interesting called ambient awareness. This constant low-level awareness of what's happening in friends' lives through small, regular updates. It's like being able to maintain a gentle connection even when you can't be physically present. Young people who maintained these digital connections showed remarkably better adjustment to new environments and reported feeling more supported during difficult transitions. What's particularly powerful about these connections is their ability to transcend geographical boundaries. A teenager in rural Montana who might otherwise grow up feeling isolated and different can connect with peers who share their specific interests, whether that's anime, computer programming, or environmental activism. This kind of connection was simply impossible for previous generations. Social media doesn't just serve as a connector for young people, it also offers an ability to maintain and strengthen social connections. One study found that regular online interaction through social platforms helped maintain relationship strength, even when in-person contact was not possible. Teens using social media to maintain connections through life transitions also reported lower levels of loneliness and higher levels of social support compared to those who didn't maintain digital connections. Now, let's talk about how these digital spaces are fostering genuine communities. One study examined how young people form support networks through social media. The team found that these online communities often serve as essential lifelines, especially for young people who might feel isolated or feel different in their local environments. When we look at community support through social media, the data is particularly interesting. One study examined how young people with chronic health conditions use online support communities. Their research found that these digital spaces provide necessary emotional support, practical advice, and a sense of belonging that many participants could not find in their immediate environment. The study documented that young people in these online communities reported feeling less isolated and better understood. They gained practical knowledge about managing their conditions and felt more confident in discussing their experiences with healthcare providers. Importantly, these benefits were especially pronounced for those in rural or underserved areas where in-person support groups might be limited or non-existent. Community is also important, as we discussed in a previous episode about the COSA Amendment, where we mentioned that some children live in a dangerous environment, and building an outside community through social media helps them find real physical safety in the real world. If we change it up a bit and think about social media and career development, LinkedIn might be the first platform that comes to mind. But what's fascinating is how platforms like TikTok and Instagram have become powerful tools for young people to explore future career paths and develop professional skills. What's particularly interesting is how these platforms are democratizing access to career guidance and networking. Young people from all backgrounds can now connect with professionals in their fields of interest, learn about different career paths, and even showcase their own skills to potential employers or clients. The informal nature of these platforms often makes career exploration feel more accessible and less intimidating than traditional networking methods. Research shows that this democratization of access to future career insights and knowledge levels the playing field for the disenfranchised, the disabled, and rural and minority youth. Research also shows that social networking platforms have become valuable tools. Students who actively engage with professional content on social media were more likely to report feeling informed about career options and confident about their professional futures. The education landscape has also been completely transformed by social media, and I'm not just talking about homework help channels. Recent research revealed something fascinating about how young people are using these platforms for learning. They found that social media creates what they call interest-driven learning communities, spaces where young people dive deep into subjects they're passionate about. Think about how a platform like YouTube has evolved over time. It's not just about entertainment anymore. Students are finding engaging explanations of complex physics concepts, step-by-step guides through advanced math problems, and even full language learning communities. What makes these resources particularly effective is their format. They're digestible, visual, and often created by peers who understand exactly what other young learners need. By fostering these collaborative learning environments, students aren't just passively consuming information. They're engaging with it, asking questions in the comments, and often creating their own content to help others understand concepts they've just mastered. This kind of peer-to-peer learning and learning by doing is powerful, which is probably why 73% of our kids and teens regularly use social media platforms for educational purposes. Research reveals that educational content on social platforms has unique advantages. According to the data, students who engaged with educational content on these platforms showed improved understanding of complex topics, particularly in STEM subjects. The study found this was largely due to the multimedia nature of the content and the ability to engage with explanations multiple times at their own pace. Now let's talk about something really important: the role of social media in mental health awareness and support. A fascinating study was published last year that challenges some of society's assumptions about social media and mental health. While we often hear about the negative impacts, researchers found that these platforms have become important spaces for mental health discourse and support among young people. Social media has helped normalize conversations about mental health in unprecedented ways. Young people are finding communities where they can openly discuss anxiety, depression, and other mental health challenges without fear of stigma. They're sharing coping strategies and supporting each other through difficult times. What's particularly powerful is how these platforms have become spaces for what psychologists call social proof. Seeing others share their mental health journeys makes it easier for young people to recognize their own struggles and to seek help. We're seeing young people using everything from TikTok to Instagram to share their therapy experiences, discuss medication journeys, and offer hope to others who might be struggling. The study found that exposure to mental health content on social media platforms significantly improved young people's ability to recognize mental health symptoms and understand treatment options. According to the data, 67% of participants reported learning about mental health resources through social media that they weren't previously aware of, empowering them to go and ask for professional help outside of the platforms. The creative opportunities that social media platforms provide for young people are truly remarkable. Recent research examined how platforms like TikTok and Instagram are fostering new forms of artistic expression. They found that these platforms aren't just showcasing creativity, they're actively shaping how young people develop their artistic voices. Young creators are learning to work with different mediums, experiment with various styles, and receive immediate feedback from a global audience. They're developing what researchers call creative resilience, the ability to iterate, improve, and persist in their creative pursuits based on community response. What's particularly exciting is how these platforms are breaking down traditional barriers to creative success. Young artists no longer need expensive equipment or formal training to reach an audience. They can start with just a smartphone and an idea. We're seeing incredible examples of young people turning their creative passions into real opportunities, whether that's through music, visual art, dance, or entirely new forms of digital expression. According to one study's findings, young people who regularly shared creative work online showed significant improvement in their technical skills over a 12-month period. The research documented improvements in areas such as composition, color theory, and digital technical skills. The peer feedback aspect of social platforms played a critical role. The data showed that constructive community feedback led to faster skill development compared to traditional learning methods alone. Social media has also revolutionized how young people engage with social causes and civic action. These platforms have become powerful tools for raising awareness, organizing action, and creating meaningful change, and not just on the larger platforms, all the way down to platforms like Roblox, which is a game. Young activists are using social media to educate their peers about important issues, coordinate volunteer efforts, and mobilize support for causes they care about. What's particularly interesting is how these platforms allow young people to connect local issues to global movements. A student concerned about environmental issues in their community can easily connect with other young environmentalists around the world, share strategies, and support each other's efforts. The research shows that this online activism often translates into real-world action. Young people who engage with social causes through social media are more likely to participate in community service, to attend local protests, and to get involved in their local government. They're developing what researchers call civic literacy, a deep understanding of how to create change in their communities. According to one study, young people who regularly engage with social justice content online are 56% more likely to participate in community service and 47% more likely to engage in local governance initiatives. The research documented that social media platforms have become excellent tools for civic action. Why don't we explore something that might surprise some of you? The psychological benefits of social media use among young people. That's right, social media platforms actually support healthy psychological development when used mindfully. One of the most significant findings was about exploration and validation of the self. Young people are using these platforms to explore different aspects of their personalities, to connect with others who share their interests, and to receive validation for parts of themselves they might feel unsure about expressing in their immediate environment. This kind of exploration and acceptance is vital for healthy psychological development. The research also highlighted how sharing experiences on platforms like Snapchat or TikTok can help reduce feelings of isolation. When young people see others going through similar challenges or sharing similar thoughts and feelings, it normalizes their experiences and helps them feel less alone. This is particularly important during adolescence, when feeling different or misunderstood can be especially challenging. The research documented several key benefits. Young people who use social media to maintain close friendships showed higher levels of perceived social support and lower levels of loneliness. The study found that the ability to share experiences and receive support through social media platforms was particularly beneficial during challenging life transitions. The data also revealed interesting findings about identity development. According to the research, young people who engaged with diverse perspectives and communities online demonstrated greater empathy and stronger identity development compared to those with limited online social interaction. One final aspect we need to discuss is how social media serves as a window to the wider world for young people. Another study examined how social media exposure influences worldview development in teenagers. The results show that these platforms are playing a strong role in broadening horizons and fostering global awareness. Through social media, young people are being exposed to different cultures, lifestyles, and perspectives in ways that were impossible for previous generations. They're learning about different traditions, they're trying new foods, and discovering various forms of art and music, and developing a more nuanced understanding of global issues. This exposure is fostering what researchers call cultural competence, the ability to understand, appreciate, and interact with people from different cultural backgrounds. What's particularly valuable is how this exposure happens naturally through everyday interaction with content from around the world. A teenager might start following someone from another country because they enjoy their content and gradually learn about that person's culture, traditions, and daily life experiences. This kind of organic learning often creates deeper understanding and empathy than formal education alone. The research also found that this exposure led to practical outcomes. Students who regularly engage with multicultural content on social media were more likely to express interest in studying abroad, in learning a new language, and in pursuing international career opportunities. The broadening of horizons, the deepening of curiosity, and the use of technology often has a greater negative impact on the parent or guardian than it does on the teenager or kid that's using social media and technology. If you want to learn a little more about that, go back a few episodes, again to the COSA episode, where I talk a bit more about the adults in these teenagers' lives and how sometimes these moral panics that we're hearing are actually a projection of adult struggles onto young people in our lives. Not always, but it's worth checking it out. Additionally, the impact of algorithmic feeds in recent years can't be overstated. It's very important that parents and children learn to curate their algorithm and participate in their algorithm rather than just doom scrolling. Remember, on a free social media platform, the user is the product, and we should act accordingly. That said, knowing how to work within that constraint gives you many benefits on social media. As we conclude today's episode, let's focus on what the research tells us about maximizing social media's benefits for young people. According to the most recent comprehensive meta-analysis, success lies not in how much these platforms are used, but how they're used. Across multiple studies, the data consistently shows that active engagement, creating, sharing, and meaningfully interacting produces more positive outcomes than just passive consumption. So, making is better than doom scrolling. Every young person's experience with social media will be unique, and what works for one might not work for another. For parents and educators, the research suggests that rather than limiting social media use entirely, a better approach might be guiding young people toward thoughtful, purposeful engagement with these platforms. When used intentionally, social media is a valuable tool for connection, for learning, and for growth. I encourage you to share what you've learned today with others who care about young people's digital lives. Think about how you might apply these insights with the children and teens in your own life, and keep this evidence-based conversation going in your communities. Our next episodes will cover two topics that often go hand in hand with the topic of social media's impact on youth. And that's device usage and time spent on devices, and how young boys are being targeted by misogynistic and racist content in gaming communities and podcasts in recent years, and what you can do about it. We're also going to be talking about the psychology of morality this month. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. I'm your host, Leslie Poston, signing off. Thanks for joining me again on cyberspace. Until next time, keep exploring the fascinating intersection of technology and human development, and stay curious. If you want to know what research was used in today's episode, I've begun putting a summary of the research in the show notes. See you next time.